Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be working on count tested devices after test operations. And in the problem you're given a zero index integer array battery percentages having length n, and your task is to test each device from 0 to n minus 1 by performing the following operations. If the percentage is greater than 0, increment our result and decrease the battery percentage of all devices that come after it, but never decrement them below 0, and then move on to the next one. Otherwise, move on to the next one without performing any test. Return an integer denoting number of devices that will be tested after performing the test operations in order. So let's take a look at this one. So what's going to happen here is this is testable. So let's actually draw this. So we have 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. So what's going to happen here is this is testable. So we will increment our result. And then for every future device, we will decrement it by 1. So this will now be 0. This will be 1. This will be 0. This will be 2. We can get rid of this stuff. So here is our devices now. Then we move on to the next one. This is not testable because it's 0. This one is testable, so we will add another one. And for all future devices, we'll decrement by 1, but we don't need to make them negative, so it'll be like this. This is not testable, and this is testable, so we'll get 3. And for the second example, it's kind of similar. So this one would be testable, then this gets decremented to 1. And then this would be testable. So if we were to do a simulation, like if we do a simulation, what we'd have to do is test, then decrement after it. And this decrement after it part would be a nested for loop, right? So we just test ith device, and then we would test like we would decrement I plus 1 all the way to the end. And that would be a nested for loop, and that would be n squared complexity. So the key to this problem is, let's just have an example. So we'll have an array of some numbers. So let's just say we have like 1, 5, 2, 3, 7, 1, 9, 1, 0, 10. Okay, so the key problem is, like, let's say we're on this index. How do we know if, like, how many devices, here's the real question that you need to ask yourself. How many devices could have been tested before this one for this to be testable? So if you think about it, every time we test a device, we decrement all devices after it, right? So for this device, in order for this to be testable, that means that out of all these devices here, we had to have tested less than 9. Because if we tested 9, then this would just be 0, right? And how do we know how many devices we have tested? Well, that's just our result variable, right? That we initialized in the beginning. So what we can do is we can just walk through, and instead of doing this nested for loop, we can just check for a device, is it bigger than the result? And if it's bigger than the result, then this is going to be non-zero by the time we get to it. We don't really care what value it is, right? Like, as long as it's non-zero, it's testable, and that's all we really care about. So that's the key to the problem, is walk through numbers. If number is greater than result, testable. So let's walk through this algorithm and see what happens. So our result is 0 in the beginning, right? So let's actually make a little arrow here. There we go. Okay, so our result is 0 in the beginning. So this is obviously testable. So we will increment our result over here to 1 now. And remember, we don't need to decrement everything after. We can just check how many devices have we tested, and then we can know if it's testable. So here we have a 5, we've tested 1, which means that this value would now be a 4. So as long as this value is greater than the number we've tested, this is testable, right? Because if we've tested 1, this value would be 4, and it would be testable. So this is testable, so we can update our result. Now here, this is a good example of one we can't. So this is equal to our result. So what would have happened is we would have tested this one, then we would have tested this one, so this value would be 0. So because it's equal to our result, it's not big enough, so it's not testable. So we move on. Now this one is testable because it's 3 and our result is 2. So now we can update it to 3. And that makes sense, right? Because we tested 2 devices before it. We tested this device and this device. So by the time we get here, this would be 1. And then we skip this one. So this is testable. Now we move on over here. This is obviously testable. So our result now will be 4. Move on over here, not testable, obviously testable. Result is 5, not testable, not testable, testable. Right, so the devices we would have been testing is these. And let's kind of see what happens. So once we test this one, this value would drop down to a 4, right? And then once we run this one, this value would be 0 now. So this would be 0 because we've tested 2 devices before it. And because we've tested 2 devices before this one, this value would have been 1. So this is testable. So I forgot this one also would have been testable. And then here, we've tested 3 devices before it, so now this value would have been 4, which would be testable. This value would be 0. This value would be, there's 4 before it that we tested, so it would have been 5. This value would be 0, 0, and then we have 5. So you can clearly see which devices are testable. It's these 6 over here. And that's how you do it in one pass. And yeah, pretty straightforward, just as long as you learn that. So now let's code it up. Pretty easy. So we'll just have a result, and we'll just say for battery and battery percentage, if battery is greater than result, that means it's testable, so we'll just add to it, and finally return the result. And that should be it. So let's see. Percentages. Okay. Hard to spell. Okay, there we go. And solutions are kind of all over the place here. Like if you just submit enough times, then you do better or worse. I think if you get like 40 or something, you do better. So this just depends on LeetCode test. Everyone has the same thing. Yeah, so for the time here, it's going to be O of n, and for the space, it's going to be O of 1. So a pretty easy one. Yeah. So if you like this one, please like this video and please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.